Welcome back to AED Summit Live, everyone. We are back with another guest, and now I'm going to be totally honest. We've been interviewing a lot of people in kind of the software tech space, but your product is actually one of the more fascinating ones to me because you're picking up on a transition that's happening in the industry that not a lot of people have picked up on yet, and that is moving towards the digital space when it comes to equipment sales. So your company is Strategic Evolutions.
Yep.
And break down for us what you do and kind of explain and flush out what I just kind of started with.
This is Mets Kramer, by the way.
Mets Kramer. I'm sorry. Mets Kramer, official introduction.
Yeah.
That's okay. My face tells the story.
There you go. So tell us about Strategic Evolutions, what you're doing, what you're finding in the industry.
So Strategic Evolutions is largely me. After 20 years of working with various dealers or for dealers, running dealerships, I've been like head of parts and service across Canada. And I spent most of my time realizing how many parts of the dealership are lacking information. And not just that we don't have metrics, everyone gets measured on metrics.
Sure.
But like real information that's integrated where you need it. So you can get all the transactional information from the system that you're using, but I started to realize that people were just missing like the bigger picture. And so what I've been doing the last 5 years is working with any number of dealers on what they should be thinking about, how they should be doing strategically to use information throughout their business better.
But one of the things that we really dove into last night when we were just conversing was this kind of move towards guys are no longer walking into a dealership and wanting to have that in-person experience, or they don't necessarily want a salesman showing up in their office and having that in-person conversation. They want to get online, they want to look at some stuff, and then communicate via text. I'm on the go. I don't have time to sit here and have a 30-minute discussion about my equipment needs and all of this stuff. So how is what you're doing kind of helping with that transition?
So the first part of that is just explaining that transition is happening.
Yeah.
Like the generations are changing. The people who are coming into the industry, the younger people, have completely different expectations of how they want to work with their dealer.
Yeah.
The old way of having, like you said, having a sales rep drop by with nothing in hand, aside from a question like, what do you need?
Yeah.
That's changing. Like the customer, the buyers are more informed. They do their own research. And so what a sales rep used to be able to offer was a brochure.
Sure.
And that would give the person the information they needed. But now they already have that.
Yeah.
And so we need to change that model and say, how do we work with that customer now that they're a different kind of buyer, they're a more informed buyer? Either we enable the salesperson with even more information that's more useful to the customer rather than just like specifications.
Yeah.
Or we have to change the way we relate to the customer and do it in the way that they prefer. They want to be able to sit there at 9 o'clock at night and send a text message to their sales rep and they're like, I looked through all the stuff and this is what I want.
Yeah.
Now, your digital dealership, I kind of grasped this conversation of where you're running with it. How does it work exactly? So you got the digital dealership, and let's say I'm interested in buying a piece. Now, am I directly coming through you to buy this piece, or you put me in contact with a sales rep that's going to handle the transaction and move forward?
So the digital dealership is really just a concept
yeah.
to get dealers to rethink how they look at their business. Most dealers have taken digital as a bolt-on.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to go digital. We're going to hire some 25-year-old to go and sit and do our social media.
Yes.
That's their idea. Or we had someone build a website and we haven't updated it in 6 months. That's digital to most dealers. And I'm trying to get people to rethink what that means.
Yeah, so you're basically taking the whole dealership and trying to flip the script to meet the mold today.
Exactly.
So I am a culprit of buying a piece of machinery from Brian over there.
I got him good.
It was hook, line, and sinker, and you see where it got us. But
yeah, you're stuck with him for a
That's
long time.
right, absolutely.
It was a long-term service contract. So.
I brought him to Florida. I mean, come on now.
But I am a huge fan, actually, from talking to you last night of what you're getting into and how you're going about it, because I hate the salesman interaction every day, all day long of, hey, let me sell you this freaking piece of machinery, and I'm like, I'm working right now. Leave me alone. in my leisure downtime, I'm actually searching for a piece of equipment. I might be browsing.
Yeah,
what's
he'll
available,
email
whatever.
me equipment or text me equipment at
Yeah.
like 9:30 at night, and it's like,
What
Rick,
do you think
calm
of
it
this?
down.
So I'm using the digital dealership in Rick's version versus what you're putting out there, and the whole interaction of nobody likes a salesman. Nobody likes walking into a dealership and being badgered from these overpaid assholes that are walking around. So I'm not trying to like break the mold here, but when you get talking and walking into all this, I like the concept of where you're at with it, and it's all at the click of my thumb on my telephone at my time. So
Yeah,
what-
dealers need to be like understanding that change is happening.
So what drove you? Obviously, you listened to the consumer, but what drove you with your passion to just develop this need?
It's seeing it happening. It's seeing dealers who are kind of losing their position.
Was it like an empty space that you just walked in and felt the conversation from supply and demand?
It's seeing people continue to do their digital business or their entire business in a way that is just losing pace with their customers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Losing pace with what consumers and the buyers' expectations are.
Because it's a fast-paced world, and nobody has time to just drive around when you could click and point.
Yeah, exactly, and they want to be able to find it. Like from the industry, we know now that like customers are doing 90% of their research about what they want before they call.
Yeah.
So the old adage of, hey, I'm going to post 4 pictures of the machine and the hours, and then put a button beside it that says, call for details. Like everyone's passing that. They're not.
Yeah.
They're not clicking. They're not
No.
calling. They're just like, well, there's not enough information. I don't care about that machine. I'll go
Yeah.
find a machine that is like well described, has some videos to it, and that I can pretty much know that's the machine I want.
Yes.
And then I'll bother to call someone.
Sure. And what I found on the sales side is when you get that call as a salesman, the piece is pretty much already sold. You're not doing anything at that point other than facilitating a transaction because the customer's already made their decision. I want this piece of equipment.
Yep.
I just need you to facilitate that.
Yep.
And it was really interesting to see how we as salesmen on the front line were seeing exactly what you're describing, yet the higher ups in the dealership still had this very old school mentality that we needed to drive around, we needed to knock on doors, we needed to, and it just wasn't working. I relayed the story last night of awkwardly, uncomfortably talking to the president of this company
Yeah.
while he's half in the door, very clearly using it as a barrier to keep me the F out of his office.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, on the phone, it's the same way. It's if I can have a very quick conversation with a customer and just establish, hey, here's who I am. This
Yep.
is what I sell. When are you going to be in the market? Okay, thanks for your time. I'm going to call you. And that all of a sudden, all the barriers come down for those customers because you're not wasting their time.
You have to
You
bring
are the
value.
facilitator.
Yep.
And so this whole conversation is just very interesting to me. Just not many people are picking up on the change happening in the industry.
Well, it was the relationship that you and I formed over time. We did a lot of emails, text messages.
Yep.
It was a quick phone call when I needed something to, hey, what about this other attachment or this machine and what's the specs kind of thing on it? And it was all that versus Brian driving out trying to pitch his equipment and talk about it. And it's like, I don't really give a shit.
Yeah.
But the concept that what you're building is the barrier of what no one's talking about, of the elephant in the room from salesman to consumer.
Yep.
And that's a phenomenal, with the way the world's going, that's a phenomenal piece of technology that's getting out there.
So let me ask you this: Strategic Evolutions, your company, are you guys primarily a consultant role? Is there a software component to it? How do you guys go in and kind of, what's your process?
So I'll work with dealers with whatever software they have. Over the last 2 years, we have started to build a dealer management platform, one that's fully integrated, that integrates into other systems properly.
Mm-hmm.
So people are not like going to one site for this and one platform for that, and they have 12 different logins, and then they have to copy information from one place to another.
Sure.
So, and that just came out of the fact that all these dealers, and especially I work with a lot of smaller dealers, were struggling. They were spending their nights, doing this and doing that and figuring out this platform and moving information from here to there. And so we just started on it to solve that problem for those customers. But the bigger picture is that what we're also trying to do, and we've done it with some like market information companies, is pull that information in. So like even the sales reps, when they're looking at their inventory machine, or if they're looking at their customers' fleet, they're getting live market pricing data right there, so they can understand there's the opportunity for value.
Yeah.
You're a sales rep, you're looking at your customer's equipment list and you're getting live market pricing on it, and you're like, oh, I see opportunities for my customer, like this machine that I know he's not using a lot is doing really well in the market right now, so maybe I'll go talk to him about something, that's a good opportunity for him, to get some equity back out of that machine. And then you show up with a reason.
Yeah.
And you show up and you
bring value. Yeah.
And you're just taking your role to the next level.
Sure.
You're not showing up with coffee. You're changing and I think the dealers need to see this. The dealerships need to stop thinking about sales as a convince people to buy a machine. People are pretty much know what they want nowadays.
Absolutely.
But the salesman's role should be there to support the customer in helping them in the equipment space.
I was going to say, there was an element, obviously, for people who, I sold case equipment, and there's a lot of people out there that don't know anything about case. And so there is the salesman role to an extent, but by far and away, I was more of a hand holder almost. It was just assisting them in a process that they had already decided they were going down.
Yeah. Oh, there'll always be room for, introducing a new product to a customer.
Sure.
You're still going to have to go out and do that. But don't be mistaken, like, people are still finding that equipment online, and they're learning about it themselves.
Yeah.
So the buyer's more informed.
Yes. Yes.
So.
Now, Mets, as we sit here and we're obviously live at the summit right now, what's the audience that isn't here right now? What are they missing by not brushing like your shoulder as they're walking around and bumping this conversation into you? Like, what are they actually missing by not coming here and seeing the value of what you're putting out for a digital dealership?
I think putting it into context. Like, it's a conversation, and it's like when I did my presentation yesterday, I realized when I pitched it that everyone thinks of going digital just like social media. That's all they're thinking. But I think what it takes is a slightly longer conversation to understand the change in the industry and how the business just simply needs to rethink how it's structured. Not bolt social media and stuff on, but really think that the best companies that we admire and talk about as business cases are the ones that have really integrated information throughout their business. Like, everything is analyzed and adjusted based on the feedback they're getting.
Yeah.
And if you're just assuming that everything's working, then those companies, those dealers out there that are catching on and are fine-tuning based on all the different data they're getting back and adjusting the pricing or their product or where they place the product and who they talk to, they're going to come out ahead.
Yeah.
You have the same experience as a consumer. You go to your Amazon website, and what you see there is curated for what you've looked at in the past.
Yeah.
Because Amazon is learning from you and wants to make the site better for you.
Yeah.
And so they're not putting up things that you're not interested in.
Sure.
'Cause you just
Irrelevant items.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're learning from all of your interactions, everything you click at, everything you look at, and they're learning who you are, and then they're changing themselves to be a better place for you to work with.
So what is the best way for someone to get a hold of you, and kind of what's your initial engagement process look like?
Initial engagement is always starting to understand each dealer's business properly and get them also to rethink a little bit who they are, what their real product is.
Yeah.
I think often we think only about the hard goods. That's our product. but I think there's a lot more to most companies, and when they understand that, that becomes kind of the foundation for restructuring, rethinking how we want to present who we are. As far as finding me, that's easy. My name is Mets Kramer. If you Google Mets Kramer,
I'm sure
I'm the only one. So.
I was going to say there's not a whole lot of them out there.
Now, are you just strictly the U.S.? Are you going globally? Where's your clientele at base-wise?
Most of my customers in the U.S. I'm based in Canada, so I have customers in Canada as well. In my career, I've done a lot of work over in Europe. I've worked for a couple of German manufacturers, and I'm European, so I'll happily go there.
Yeah.
Now,
Well,
you've been in the tech side for a while. What do you value? Like, when you set your bar at your product, what's setting you apart from anybody else? Obviously, you got the digital dealership, but what's setting your product apart from the next company that's going to try to come in and copy you down the road? Like, obviously, you're going to have someone that's going to make the next digital dealership after they grasp your concept and try to mold who you are. But how do you keep that, and what's going to set you apart down the road?
Well, my boss years ago told me that I move too fast and I'm too far ahead of people. So even then, I'm looking like 10 years in the future of where this is going. As far as a product, I mean, if we want to talk about like a software product, what's different is we're building it from new.
Yeah.
And we're using the openness that platforms should have, so that when you say to me, oh, I want to integrate this data from here, I want to pull my engagement stuff from this platform, I want to integrate with this vendor and stuff better, we do that from day one.
Yeah.
Like it's just built to be open rather than closed. And that's unfortunately one of the challenges, is that the world is interconnected. And so if you're getting into the software space, you have to be open.
Well, and like we discussed last night, a lot of these pieces of software that dealerships are using are just so old. They weren't designed for the era that we're in now, where there is this information exchange. And so there's true value in designing it with that in mind, because like we were talking about, once you're locked in and you can't get that information out, or it's just this self-contained thing that really, really limits what you can do with it.
Yeah, I mean, the most important thing in your whole business is your data.
Sure.
It doesn't matter what system it's in, it just needs to be accessible to you. It's your data. You can look at the front end, you can talk about functionality, that's great, but if you can't get at your data, if you can't move your data easily, then there's the heart of your company.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think sometimes people don't think about that. They get hung up on the front end.
Yeah.
But if you want to rethink, or if you want to analyze something but you can't, then you're holding yourself back.
Sure.
By not being able to do that.
Well, thanks for being on, Mets. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's been a good time.
Fun.
Well, thank you guys for watching. I believe we've got one more live coming up here for you this afternoon, and then we will obviously be going live throughout the day tomorrow. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the little bell so that you get notified when we go live, and we will catch you guys here in a bit.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.